Today we're going to talk a little about the basics of showmanship, and particularly when you start with young lambs that have not been handled, they haven't had any time spent with them yet, and some of the things that you can do to start these lambs young and create the right kind of habits in these lambs to teach them to show, and then the continued work that you'll do so that later on you'll have a lamb that you can walk in the ring that kind of knows what to do and will set up and show for you automatically. We've got a young lamb today that's the exhibitor has owned this lamb for only a couple of weeks, so there hasn't been a lot of time spent on the lamb. We'll talk a little about some of the techniques that we need to instill in showmen. What we've found is that when the showman gets the technique right, the sheep learn pretty quickly. And to me, it all comes down to position of the showman in front of the lamb. We see showmen that oftentimes want to get way off to the side of the lamb and don't give that lamb a solid foundation to brace into. You want to put your body in a position so that you've got some stability, and when that lamb pushes into you, he's not going to knock you over, but you give him something firm that he can push into. It's all about where your feet, as a showman, where your feet and legs are. You want to have the left leg of the showman extending over across the front of the sheep, not covering up the shoulder, but extending across in front of the sheep. You want to have your right leg with some bend in it so that you can brace, and so that you've got giving him something to push into, but you've got some stability yourself. Your hand placement is pretty critical as well. You want to have a hand on either side of the head basically, and have the head and neck coming right up out of the top of the shoulders. Makes it real easy to give that sheep a little bump if you need to kind of wake him up and make him push into you. As far as setting feet and legs on the lamb, you want the lamb to be setting, before you start bracing, fairly square. You'd like for these back legs to be coming right off the hip. You want his front legs coming right out of the point of his shoulders. I like for a showman to get the back legs set first and get them set nice and square in terms of width. You want to come right off the hook bones and right straight down to the ground in terms of width. You want to have these back legs just slightly offset from the hip. Once you get that set, you can bump the front end and just pick him up just a little bit, and those front legs will set themselves, and you can get him then set at the stretch where you want him. Go ahead and bump him just a little bit. Just a simple bump to get the front legs set the way you want them. The other thing that does for you is it makes that sheep alert, gets him up, and makes him kind of plane up into you so that he begins to brace. Okay? You want that head to be setting fairly level. Sometimes you'll see showmen that have that head really pointing up at the sky. That sheep's not comfortable right now. He's starting to fight. He's not wanting to set up. You can tell that he's getting uneasy. So just keep that head nice and level, and you'll give yourself a better look from the side. The brace is really important when a judge comes in to handle. That's when you want your lamb to be pushing the absolute hardest. So when a judge comes in to handle, you're going to get just a little more brace out of him. Make him push for you just a little bit more. When the judge backs off and looks and is studying, you're going to keep that brace going. It's not until the judge moves on that you can begin to back out of the lamb. The first thing you want to do when the judge moves on is check your legs, make sure that you're still set the way you want to. If you need to reset them, now's the time, and then just ease out of the lamb just a little bit, but maintain your position in front so that you keep that head and neck coming up straight out of the point of the shoulder. You keep them in a nice look from the profile when the judge backs off. One of the things that we notice on this lamb, this lamb tends to be just a little bit coarser right out of that breastplate. There's a really, that's one of the things that we can certainly improve on in terms of showmanship, is this breastplate on this lamb as he wants to come out. That's one of the things that keeping that head up is really, really important, keeping that front end picked up. When you let a sheep down like that, they'll drop that breastplate, but on that profile, go ahead and get back in him. When you've got that leg in the right position, you can hide that and make that lamb look much more attractive up through his front end. You'll notice the showman occasionally reaches down and just taps. And that's for nothing more than to keep the lamb kind of alert and to keep him bracing. It's just a little tap. It's one of those things that if we do it, if we overdo it, it gets to be annoying to judges. One of those things you don't want a showman to just sit there constantly tapping, constantly bumping the lamb, but once in a while, it's okay to bump him and tap him and just kind of keep him awake. It's never okay to pop a lamb in the show ring, to pop his dock, to pop his side real hard. It's never okay to do that, but it is okay to once in a while just give them a little tap to kind of wake them up. Feet and leg placement is the most important thing in terms of showmanship. You want all 4 feet set square at all times. Don't hand set front legs. Always pick them up and get the set that way with front legs. Keep the back legs set nice and square. Maintain eye contact with the judge. Know where the judge is. Know that when he comes into brace that we need to reset and get him ready to go and get some hard brace out of the lamb. These lambs are athletes, but they're only going to give you a few minutes cumulative in the show ring when they're really going to brace hard. So we want to make sure that we get that at the right time, and the right time is when the judge is coming in to handle, is when we want to get the most out of them that we can in terms of brace. Showmanship is in lambs, and maybe I'm biased, but showmanship in lambs is the most critical of any species of livestock. There's more contact between showman and animal in lamb showmanship than there is in any other species. You can take an awfully good lamb and go in the ring, and if you can't get him shown, you don't have much chance with that lamb. By the opposite scenario, you can take a kind of a mediocre lamb that's got some good points with a really good showman, go in the ring and probably move that lamb up several places and get him maybe make the sale at a major show and beat several lambs that were better, that were higher quality. Showmanship in market lambs is absolutely critical. It's not one of those things that you can do in just a short amount of time. It takes hours. It takes a lot of work at home to get these lambs to where they'll show the way that you want them to, but it's an investment that I think you'll find to be worth your time when you walk into the show ring and you have a successful experience with your lamb in the show ring at a major livestock show. Let's talk just a little bit about getting an appropriately sized and aged sheep to fit the showman that we have in our market lamb show. In general, you'd like for your market lamb to be somewhere between 8 and 12 months old at showtime, and a good rule of thumb is 10 months at showtime. So if we're showing in a March show, you might think about a lamb that's somewhere in that March-April time frame as being an appropriate age lamb for your show. A February lamb, you might think about a March lamb being the right age for that. Now, there's a lot of March lambs that come next February will be really different in terms of their end weight. You'll have some that'll weigh 120 pounds and some that'll weigh 160 or 70 pounds. If you've got a showman that is in 3rd grade and weighs 40 or 50 pounds, which one do you think is going to fit you more appropriately? Probably the lighter weight sheep. So you want to think about some of those things that you can look at in a market lamb when they're babies to try to project what they might be when they're 10 months old. Some of the indicators that you look for is length of cannon. That's on that front leg from the knee down. A shorter cannon bone will equate to a lamb that in the end will be smaller framed and generally lighter weight. Sometimes the length of their face is a good indicator. If you just look at the length of the head and the length of the ears, you can study that and look at lambs and see those that have longer and larger heads. Those lambs are going to grow more and they're going to finish out and be much heavier in the end. overall length of body is something that you can look at and make some determination about what that lamb might be at the end. It's not a perfect science, but it's something that I think you always need to consider in selecting lambs. If you've got a showman that's 5'6" or 5'7" and can handle a bigger lamb, then don't worry so much about always trying to get a lightweight. But if you've got a little bitty showman, a very young child that doesn't have a lot of experience, we probably don't want to send them in at San Antonio or Houston at a major livestock show or at a March County livestock show on one that weighs 170. We probably want to be sure that we get a young lamb that's going to be easy to feed. We want to get one that we've looked at some of those indicators and we've been successful in getting one that'll be 130 or lighter or something along those lines. In the end, I think it's really important that we consider that to make for a more enjoyable and successful experience for our showmen. They get in the ring with one that outweighs them by 120 pounds at a major livestock show or even at a county livestock show. Chances are they're not going to have quite as much fun in the ring as one that gets in there with one that's more appropriate in terms of age and size to match the showman in the show ring. I think they look better as a team, and I certainly think they'll work together better as a team when we think about size and end weight.